I want to talk to you guys about how to graph using the intercepts. There's plenty of ways to approach graphing questions, but I feel like some of the quickest and easiest ways are to graph the intercepts or slope-intercept form. If you've not heard of that yet, we'll be covering that soon. But to graph the intercepts, we're going to have to do a couple things. First things to note is that the x-intercept looks like a point where we have some number, comma, 0. That is because I want to put a point somewhere along this x-axis to be that intercept, where the line crosses the x-axis. Every point on that highlighted line has a y coordinate of 0. That is because I don't have to go up or down to find that point. Just have to go left or right to find it. Now, the next part we'll deal with the y-intercept. Let me switch that color. The y-intercept is when we have 0, comma, some number. That is because when we go to graph a y-intercept, it'll be somewhere on this line. And on this line, I don't have to count left or right. So I have a 0 in for x. All I have to do is count up or down using that y coordinate. And now, what I want to do is explore how we can find that. In order to find an x-intercept, what we need to do is get rid of our y. All we are going to do is take our equation and make y 0. Because we're not going to use y. In order to have an x-intercept, I need to know what x is. To finish solving this, luckily, x plus 0 is just x. So x equals 3. Meaning, I can put a point on the graph at 3, comma, 0, right here. Now for the y-intercept, I'm going to go back to the same equation. I don't need my x. X is 0 in the coordinate, so I'm going to make x 0 and then solve for y. And again, just like before, 0 plus y is y, so I get y equals 3 and get the coordinate 0, comma, 3. That point is right here. When I go to graph this line, all I got to do is connect my dots. Make sure you're going off the chart. And then arrows on the end. Now, that one was super easy. I want to try some more. Might have a little more work to them. Let's look at this number 8 here. 10x minus 3y equals 15. Let's start with the x-intercept again. I'll start in red. I need to get rid of my y. To do that, let's start with 10 times x minus 3, this time times 0. I'm going to replace y with 0, equals 15. Well, negative 3 times 0 is just 0, so 10x minus 0 equals 15, which becomes 10x equals 15. And I apologize, it looks like our intercepts are not going to be whole numbers, but we can still graph this. I must divide by 10 because I'm solving for x. X needs to be by itself. X equals we have 15 over 10, or 3 over 2. And for our graphing purposes, I would normally leave this as the point 3 over 2, comma 0. To help us, that is going to be 1 and 1/2. So I could put a point right here in between 1 and 2, just directly in the middle. Now let's see if we can use this same piece, sorry about that, to find our y-intercept. I'm going to go back to green. For our y-intercept, we need to get rid of x. So I'm going to zero it out. I'm going to make it 0. And then we're going to solve for y. If you have a faster way of doing this work or a shortcut, please use it. I am just going through each step to make sure we are okay. 10 times 0 is 0, minus 3y equals 15. Simplify, I get 3y equals 15. And now I'm going to divide by 3. This one's nice. I'm going to do my work right over here. Y equals 5. So I can graph the coordinate 0, comma 5. And again, connect my dots. Now, I want to generalize this into some sets of rules. I'm going to open up a blank page. Please pause the video and go back if you need any of that work, but I'm going to write down some steps. In order to find an x-intercept, all we need to do, plug in 0 for y. Step 1. After that, all you had to do was divide. To find a y-intercept, all you need to do is plug 0 for x, and then again divide. You will then have coordinates where you will have some number, comma, 0 for our x, and then 0, comma, some number for y. These are two separate points, not one point altogether. Once you read these steps, stop the video, go back, and take a look at those examples again. I want you to see those steps in action. And now I'm going to follow this up by doing a couple more, 1, maybe 2 questions, again to demonstrate the step. So I'm going to go backwards, 1 page, and let's pick out I don't see any good ones on this page. Let's go to this page and take a look at number 4. Let's figure out number 4. Now, as a warning, I already know I'm going to have a fraction somewhere. Let's take a look. For our x-intercept, our first step is to take our equation and plug in 0 for 5. I'm sorry, 0 for y. When that reduces and simplifies, what we're left with is simply going to be 6x equals 20 And then I'm going to go divide by 6. This is where I said we get that fraction. X equals, let's go ahead and reduce 20 over 6. We can divide them both by 2, 10 over 3. So we have an intercept at 10/3, comma 0. To make this a little easier, let's actually look at this as 3 1/3, giving me a point somewhere like right there. And now for the y. For the y-intercept, we're going to take our equation. Instead of x, we're going to plug in a 0 plus 5y equals 20. I'm left with 5y equals 20. All I have to do now is divide by 5. I am left with y equals 4. So I'm going to go to my graph and put the point 0, 4. That one's much easier. And then connect my dots. This gives you 3 examples to look at to review these steps. Please pause the video and go back and make sure you understand everything I did in each of the examples.